This is the handover for the Trigano Tribute 665. We'll begin on the outside of the motorhome. Located towards the rear of the van, you have the hatch for the toilet cassette. This particular toilet cassette is fitted with a SOG unit. When the slider blade is opened inside, it engages a fan. The fan turns on and draws out some of the smells and odours that accumulate inside the toilet cassette. Principle being is that by using this system you're able to use the cassette chemical free if you wish. Press both buttons in simultaneously and you should be able to then open up into the hatchway. You can see the pipe work which is connected up for the SOG unit. Pull up on the orange lever and you should be able to slide the cassette out quite easily. If there's any degree of resistance, check and make sure that the slider is shut firmly inside. With the cassette extended out and the pipe disconnected from the main outlet, you should be able to go over to a disposal point, remove the grey cap completely, tip the whole cassette up, and as you are doing so, press in the orange button at the top. That allows airflow into the top, which then allows the waste to come out of the base. If you want to use chemicals, remove the cap at the top there, alright, add in your toilet chemicals and then a little bit of water, and that then gives you the digesting agent to break that waste down. Fold the neck over and then remove and return the cassette to the side of the van. Further along you have the exhaust vent for the water heater. Whenever you use the water heater on gas, you must pull up on the handle on the base and remove the cover so the exhaust vent is exposed. If you fail to do that, the water heater won't ignite, it won't light. It's not uncommon, it's probably not clear in this video, but you will get a little bit of a condensation plume coming up from the vent when it's in operation. All right, it goes towards the window. So the recommendation is if you are ever using the water heater on gas, make sure that the above window is shut properly. Further along you have your water inlet. Goes into approximately an 80-85 litre tank underneath the back of the vehicle. Use the key that's provided to open the cap and then fill up with water accordingly. Further along from that you have the inlet for the gas flow system. So you have two cylinders that are in your gas locker. You have a yellow cylinder which is the refillable one, so you can drive to a gas station and fill up with auto gas and continue using the gas system in that way. If you run out of auto gas, alternatively there is a red colour cylinder that's in there which you can use as a backup and obviously exchange those through the colour system so that you can continue using the gas in that way. Down underneath the back of the vehicle you've got tow bar, and then up underneath you have this blue tap to a white outlet, and that's the drain point for the fresh water tank. It's important that through the winter months, especially when it's in freezing conditions, that all of the tanks are drained off thoroughly. The interior taps are left open so that the systems don't freeze up. When you open the back door, on the right hand side you have your gas locker. Open up the press stud and you can see the two cylinders that we mentioned earlier. So the yellow one at the back, which is your gas flow system, and then the standard colour propane one which is adjacent to it. There is a little changeover valve that you can make use of, so if you are out of gas on the gas flow, then you can change the valve over to go into the propane cylinder that's adjacent to it. You cannot refill the colour cylinder by going to an auto gas station. It is specifically for the filling of the gas flow unit only. Also left by the previous owner is your mains lead 25 metres in total. It's important that you make sure that the gas bottles are switched off prior to your departure for your own safety. On the opposite side to the gas locker, in the back of this cupboard, sits your mains RCD point. Once you connected the cable to the outside of the van, you then push that small switch on the left hand side up, and that will engage your main supply. It'll give you access to your 240 volt sockets which are inside the van, turns on the battery charger which trickle charges your leisure battery, and will also give you main supply to the fridge. So you have your mains flap and the connection for connecting to your power supply. Further along, you've got the exhaust vent at the back of the fridge, and then below on the skirt line you have this black lever. This one is in the open position at the moment, but it's the release lever for the grey water tank. So when it's pulled forward, it allows the grey water from your shower, from your vanity unit, from your kitchen sink to be disposed of. It comes out of a central outlet underneath the van. Your step can be controlled from a switch which is just inside the door. Alternatively, the step will retract when the ignition is turned on. Adjacent to the sliding door, you have your outlet for your filler cap. Ignition key in, twist, and you can release to refill with fuel. At the end of the dashboard, you have your bonnet release as well. The engine battery on this model is below the floor. The vinyl roll that's there is an option left by the previous owner, that you can actually protect the floor further in the van from the original vinyl floor. He's got an overlay, a template that's been made up. What you could do if you wanted to is use that as a template for making your own carpet systems. Underneath the passenger seat you have your vehicle toolbox. With the bonnet open, over on the left hand side you have your screen wash, your power steering fluid and brake fluid, and then your radiator water in front, oil filler cap, and then the red lever there is the pull up for the dipstick. Because the engine battery is located underneath the passenger floor, if you ever need to jump start the vehicle, then lift up this flap, attach your positive onto that fitting just there, and the negative onto this bolt just here, and that enables you to jump start the vehicle. The van's got an alarm system fitted. The alarm is connected to the engine battery. If you go for prolonged periods of time, I would strongly recommend that you use a portable charger, plug it inside the van, go underneath the floor cover in the passenger cell, and periodically charge the engine battery. You will notice when you lift the cover up underneath the engine battery, for the engine battery I should say, there's a fuse which is mounted adjacent to the battery. That fuse is specifically for the alarm system. It's quite sensitive. If it's knocked or displaced in any way, there is a possibility for the vehicle to shut down the alarm system. Also fitted on the outside of the van, you have a rollout awning. There's a winding handle which is stored inside the van. It needs to be connected to the eyelet, which is just there, before you can wind the awning out. Because of its proximity to the top of the sliding door, you must always wind the rollout awning with the door shut. Once the awning's been wound out about halfway, they're not designed to be self-supporting, so you have legs which are clipped up into the pelmet. Pull out at one end and then unclip from a central point, and you should then be able to drop the leg into position. As your legs drops down, it will usually drop the leg down to the floor, and then you can tighten the leg position up by using the slider on that side. Repeat on the opposite side, and then continue winding the awning out to your desired position. Approximate extension on these is about 2.5 meters. The awnings are sunshades. In wet or windy conditions, they have got to be put away. There is a strip line at the front, so if you wanted to attach a freestanding awning, for example, and use that as a drive-away connection, then you could do so. It's the reverse for putting the awning away. So again, undo your leg winder, fold the leg up. Make sure when you put the leg back in that the foot is against the front of the pelmet. Push it back in onto the clip, and then push in from this end, and then you should then be able to wind the awning back in accordingly. When you come inside the van, up above your head, above the passenger seat, is your 12-volt control panel. Button over on the extreme right hand side turns on that control panel, gives you a little bleep, immediately shows you a time clock and date. There's no temperature sensor on this model, so you won't get internal or external temperatures shown. Press the button again, and it will give you your voltage percentages within the engine battery and habitation battery. Currently we're plugged into the mains, that's why the leisure battery is showing 14.5 volts. There's no direct system, as I've already mentioned, to enable you to keep the battery charged up on the engine side. If you are plugged into mains, it only charges the leisure battery. Press the next button in, and it will give you your water level gauges. S1 refers to the fresh water tank, so at the moment it's about 2/3 full. Press it again. S2 and S3. S2 is the grey water tank underneath the van. S3 does not exist. Again, this control panel is standard across a number of models. The S3, an option on some of the larger coach builds to give you a secondary wastewater tank. If you want to use or move any water around inside the van, so this is for hot or cold water and also for the flushing of the toilet, you need to make sure the pump is switched on. I would recommend, after you've done the main activities of washing up, having showers, etc., that you leave the pump switched off. There's no external awning light on this one, so again that switch is redundant, and then you have a single switch for the interior operation of your 12-volt lights. You have a range of LED lights, some of which are on dimmer switches or can be turned off, and then you have some spot lamps and downlighters in the back of the vehicle. As well as having strip lamps underneath the kitchen units and also in the bathroom. 12-volt will also activate your cigar lighter sockets that are in the back of the van. The ones that are in the cab are switched off when the vehicle is stationary. And again, as long as you're plugged in onto the main supply, then your mains sockets will work as well. So here we have our 12-volt control panel on. Turn the buttons off, press and hold in on this one for a couple of seconds, and that will turn off the 12-volt supply. If we take away the cushions underneath, it will reveal the leisure battery and also the battery charger. Interior fuses for the internal operation for the van are also there, so things like the water pump and igniters are located in this spot as well. Below your gas lids you have your gas hob and sink. For the gas burners to work, obviously make sure the gas supply is switched on. There are some isolator taps for the individual gas appliances inside this van, which are at the base of this unit underneath the grille. I'll show you to those in a bit more detail shortly. Turn your gas valve around, use your piezo igniter, a couple of clicks, and you should get your gas supply coming through accordingly. like so. And then obviously repeat the process with the other burner just to ensure you've got that continuity of gas. There's no isolator on these lids, so if this lid is brought down over the flame, they will continue to burn and ultimately they will explode the glass. So avoid making sure that everything is cooled down and switched off for a period of time before you attempt to close the glass. Right down in the base of this cupboard towards the back wall, sorry it's a bit of a gloomy shot, but you have got your isolator taps in there for the individual appliances. At the moment they're all turned on, so they're feeding into the different units, but if you are reluctant to use the gas or have concerns about the gas operation, then you can use that as an additional isolation point to take out appliances. Above you have the grill. Having removed the grill insert, which is obviously stopping it from rattling when it's in travel, then in a similar fashion to the hob, you can turn the gas valve around and obviously use the piezo igniter accordingly to ignite. And there's also a courtesy light as well inside the grill. Just to complete the steps on the handover, there is the grill lit for you. So for the water system around the van, you've got hot and cold water. First of all, make sure that your water pump is switched on, and if all the taps are shut inside the van, you should be able to draw water straight through on your cold water sleeve almost immediately. If you're wanting hot water, underneath the bed at the back you have your gas hot water heater. In the foreground you'll notice a small yellow tab. That yellow tab is closed at the moment in a horizontal position, and it's allowing the water to be pumped from the cold water tank up into the actual tank itself, hot water tank itself, where obviously hot water can then be generated. For winter storage, it's critical that this yellow lever is lifted to the vertical position. As soon as I lift it up, you'll immediately hear the water escaping out underneath the van. To prime the system, to make it ready for hot water use, you must first of all make sure that that yellow valve is shut in the horizontal position as it is now. Turn the hot water tap on in the kitchen and draw the water through the water heater. The water heaters do not automatically refill if you only fill up the fresh water tank. You've got to draw the water system back through, purge it as we call it. Once you've got a continuous supply of cold water coming out of your hot taps, and you need to repeat the process with the shower unit and the vanity unit to make sure you've got that continuity of supply, then you can go about heating up hot water. If you fail to do any of that, you risk damaging the water heater, you risk the water heater tripping out because there's insufficient amounts of water within the system. So earlier we bled the water through, so now when I turn the tap to the hot water system, you should get a consistent cycle of hot water, cold water coming through. We did heat this one up, so shortly you should start to see some steam starting to rise, indicating that the hot water heater is working. The hot water heater switch is actually located, and I'll use the spot lamp to highlight its position, up underneath the cabinet above the bed. It's a three-way rocker switch. At the moment it's in an 70-degree mark position. If I move the switch back, it turns the system off. You hear a bit of a click as it switches off. If you only want to heat the water up to 50 degrees, then you press the switch towards you and it will do the same thing. There's no indicator light to tell you that the system is on. However, if the unit fails because maybe the cover hasn't been removed externally, if you run out of gas, for example, then you will see a red light typically coming on top of the sort of the black part of the surround, indicating that the unit has failed. Switch the system off, Check your gas supply, make sure that you've got a good gas supply coming through your hob, for example. Make sure that the cover's been removed externally from the water heater outlet, and then repeat the process and you should be able to get your gas system working. With the burner on, then you should be able to get hot water in around about 25 to about 45 minutes or so. It's heating up 2 gallons or 10 litres at any one time. As the hot water is being drawn off, obviously it's being refilled with cold water from the tank below, so it may need a period of time to heat up. I mentioned when we were outside the van that you've got the exhaust vent flue fitted directly below the window. This model has been upgraded slightly to conform with new regulations and now has a micro switch fitted on the inside of the window. So if we open up the window, there's a switch behind here which will automatically trigger, and it will systematically shut down the water heater and prohibit it from being used. So if you ever try to use the water heater on a warm day, for example, and you can't get it to ignite, it may well be because you've left the window ajar. You must always make sure with windows that they are locked on the fully shut position whenever you set off down the road. Though they are quite secure, I have, in my experience, come across 1 or 2 people that have managed to pop a window out because the airflow has managed to get underneath it as they've been driving along. All of the opening windows have got blinds and fly screens on them as well. So you have a fly screen which you pull down from the top, all right, which engages on to the unit, and then you can squeeze the 2 triggers together to make it into the blind on the back. All right, pop it away just slightly, squeeze the triggers together, and it reopens. One of the windows at the back is missing one of the clips. We can't obtain these clips anymore, but the blind still works with just a single action up to the top, and obviously back the other way as well. There are 2 roof lights in the van, a simple Fiamma style roof light at the back. Just unwind the little handle and you can see that the roof light opens up. Not resilient enough to be driven open, so again you need to make sure that these are shut, and they also have a nighttime blind on them as well. In the front of the van you've got a slightly larger Hecky roof light. Push the button into the framework and then draw the lever around and it opens up the roof light accordingly. And again, not resilient enough to travel with them open. You have fly screens and also a blind for nighttime use. Into the bathroom. The sink is designed to move along the frame rail so that it can be used as a sink or carefully pushed back so that you can use the shower space. As we've mentioned to you before, the shower tray has now been completely refurbished, so it's now ready for water use, which previously you couldn't do because there was a large crack through the middle of it. We've used this company on a number of occasions before. They completely recoat the shower tray to make it watertight and fit for use. You've got a tower control on the right hand side. If it's just pulled open, then it will give you your hot and cold water. If you press in on the button, just like so, then that activates and makes it into the shower. Forgive my reluctance for doing it at this moment in time. You also have your light switch up the top there accordingly. You have a swivel bowl toilet in the bathroom as well. Lift up your seat. When you open the slider, the SOG fan will automatically kick in. So you push the slider away from you to get it to open. Let your waste go through in a normal fashion. With the water pump switched on, you should be able to flush water. It's just clean water around the inside of the bowl. Close over after use and the fan will stop. All right. The fan will come on if you take the cassette out of the van. When you push the cassette back in, the fan may continue to run. Just push open and close again on the grey lever and that should cancel out that effect. When the toilet cassette is approaching full, you'll see an indicator light coming on just below this symbol here, telling you that it's time to empty it. You've got a 3-way fridge in this Trigano. It's operated via 12 volt when you're driving to maintain the temperature within the fridge. It has to be pre-chilled in advance. There's a mains operating system once you're on site on hookup. I would recommend that the van is level when you are wanting to use the fridge, either on mains or on gas. So use leveling wedges underneath the road wheels, perhaps a spirit level on one of the countertops, just to make sure that you have eliminated any lateral or longitudinal roll out of the vehicle. The closer it is to being flat, the more efficient the fridge will operate. When the vehicle started up, then you should be able to turn on that switch, and as I've already mentioned, that will maintain the temperature within the fridge. It will illuminate when the vehicle is in motion. As soon as you take the key out of the ignition and switch the system off, then that power supply is cut and it no longer supports the operation of the fridge. If you're plugged in onto mains, as we are at the moment, then you should be able to turn that one on. You should get a nice crisp green light showing that the fridge is operational. And you've got a regular thermostat which you can adjust. The higher the number, the colder the fridge will become. To be used separately to the mains operation for cooling, you have a gas operation. So you'll have an igniter which will click away merrily. As you push in on the gas thermostat, it engages the gas, hold it in for a few seconds and then slowly release it, and that should allow then the gas to come through. And then again another thermostat on this side. Again, the higher the number, the colder the fridge will become. If the gas supply is interrupted or switched off, you'll probably wait to the igniter kicking in. The method for opening the fridge door is to push in and upwards on this little green tab. So if it's been locked shut, as it's shown there, push in and upwards and it should release accordingly. Like so. And then you can then open up the fridge door. We'll have the fridge on overnight tonight, but you should feel that there's a nice healthy frost in there, so it's ready for your use tomorrow. When you're storing the van, you can actually leave the fridge door in a ventilated position. So just prior to closing it, just hold the door open so that it clips down onto the second latch position, and it just leaves a slight ventilation gap onto that unit. Your room heating system is a diesel Wabasco unit. The control for it is at the end of the kitchen unit. It blows warm air out through various grey circular roundels around the inside of the van. There's one located in the dining area, one underneath the back beds, and a third one in the bathroom. There's no isolators to direct the flow. It simply gives you a continuous circulation of warm air. To turn it on, turn the dial in a clockwise motion. You'll see a green triangle come on in the center of the display. Initially you don't hear anything at all. It takes around about 1.5 to 2 minutes for it to draw fuel through from the main onboard diesel tank. There's no separate reservoir for it, and then it passes it through a heater matrix and starts to turn that heat flow over. They're extremely efficient. It's rare that you'll need to use it on full power for any prolonged period of time in such a well insulated van as this. When you switch them off, the light goes out, The fans, however, may continue to run for a couple of minutes or so whilst they cool themselves down and burn off any residual fuel that might be in the system. You can, if you wish, drive with this system on, unlike its gas counterpart where it's got to be switched off. If you have got passengers travelling in the back and it's colder climates or weather, then you can put the heater unit on and it improves the heat circulation throughout the interior of the van. When you come around to the driver's side, first thing that you'll notice before you get into the van is you have your handbrake. Above the handbrake you have two levers for the adjustment of the driver's seat. You pull up onto them and that allows the seat to elevate. You have your typical backrest adjustment, and then up inside the armrest you have adjusters for the armrest height position as well. A D-bar for sliding the seat forwards and backwards, and then on both passenger and driver seat you have this lever which is used for the operation for swiveling the seat accordingly. When you come to starting the vehicle, I put the cover for the water heater actually on top of the steering wheel boss. It's a reminder to you that you need to reattach it before you do your departure. The vehicle needs to be started in the gear 1 position. If the system is switched on and switched off, then consequently it will bleep at you if it's been left in the neutral position. So when you turn the ignition on, you should see the words Auto 1 displayed at the bottom of the screen because I've got the door open at the moment. Obviously we're getting that information warning as well. Your lever controls are here. So with it in Auto 1, as soon as you take your foot off the brake, the vehicle should start to move forward and you apply the accelerator. If you push the lever to the left, you'll see the auto disappears from the display and you are now into a sequential drive system. So when you pull back on the lever, the gears will go up through because the vehicle is not in motion at the moment. Obviously won't allow us to do that. Reverse on this is over and back towards us, and you see your reverse symbol come up, and then if you want to put the vehicle into neutral, it goes forward. The rest of the controls, you have your lights and your cruise control stalks on the left hand side, and then your windscreen wiper controls located just here. Headlamp beam adjustment is done from there. Should the alarm fail to work, in the handbook there is a PIN number and you can put the PIN number code in. Running separately from the 12 volt supply, you have your reversing camera. Alright, make sure that this switch is turned off before you leave the vehicle, otherwise it will continue to run down on the engine battery. And then finally your ventilation controls over on this side. So your speed, temperature, direction, and then when you want to draw the airflow from outside or inside, and then your air conditioning switch located just above it. Do your departure checks before you set off, so make sure that the gas supply is switched off, make sure that all of your lockers are secure, and then you should be ready to go. To turn off the 12 volt control panel, you need to press and hold the on-off button on the control panel